Hi guys, and welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you for all of your messages, and thank you to everyone who has signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so many people that have signed up, and I thank you so much for that. I will go through all of your messages. I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all of your messages for definite. Even the ones, right, who I disagree with, who disagree with me, and even the ones who tell me to go home or to go somewhere, wherever the hell. I don't know. I'd like one of these people to actually tell me where I should go to, because I've been told this again to go. I don't know. They didn't say home. I don't think they said home. They just said go. if if I don't like it here, I should go. And I'm like, well, where the hell should I go to? If someone could give me some idea of that. But the thing is, right, I'm glad your racist ass is watching and listening. That's the main thing. I'm glad to, yeah, because I know that, see, if you can look at someone, yeah, who is a different color to you and say and tell them, right, because you've had a disagreement with them, and you can tell them, right, they must go home, right, when they're born in this country, that means that you are definitely born with the racist gene. Definitely. Because I would say, yeah, it's probably not the first time that you've used that kind of language. Right? It wouldn't be the first time. Right? So, obviously, you would have been born with that racist gene. And that's the motherfucker that you need to get rid of. Because then you wouldn't be going and telling people they should go home. What you would be doing is you'd be like tackling the issues, right, with an educational chat, rather than you go home. Actually, it was a woman, so you go home. Seriously. I mean, seriously. Right? I hope, I really hope that that person is watching, because especially when I do things on Brexit and racism, that is directly aimed at you. Yeah, like it's aimed at you. So if you're gonna say something, yeah, no, go home is not a good thing to start with. That's just ridiculous. And it's stupid and it's racist. And that makes you a stupid, racist, xenophobic, bigoted idiot. That you could form those words, yeah. You could form those words in any way you want, but they all work for you. Anyway, right. So I've got to say, like, R.I.P. to Jimmy Greaves, because like Jimmy Greaves was, in the 80s, yeah, when I was a kid, right, watching Saints and Greavesy on a Saturday. Sorry for anyone who's listening to this internationally, because this is about Britain. It's Britain first, right? So yeah, so Jimmy Greaves, right? Two things that he was really prolific at. Right, one was scoring goals, and the other was being a drunk. Right, so his alcoholism, yeah. I mean, he tackled it head on. Do you know what I mean? He came out, right, in the I don't know. He came out, right. Obviously, I was too young to know about any of this when this was going on. But I've done some reading over the weekend about him, right. So he came out, and he did tackle it head on, and he was very, very brave to go in front of the cameras and say to them, listen, I have a problem with alcohol, right. Now, thinking of that, yeah, you just think to yourself, right, alcohol has destroyed so many lives, yeah. But you know something? About 20 minutes ago, I was watching the telly and I saw a Bacardi advert. you know. So yeah, so Jimmy Greaves, he handled it head on. Came out in the media, told them that he had a major problem. I mean, in one of his books, he explained that he was drunk between, I think, 72 or 74 up to about 79. Do you know what I mean? And then he woke up. Do you know what I mean? Right? Um, so he really did handle it. And so many people, I think, probably millions of people around the world, watched what he said, and heard what he said, right. Because he just come out. And I think at that time when he came out and said that, yeah, right, that would have been like, at that time probably would have been like coming out and saying that you was gay. Do you know what I mean? It's like it was a massive, massive thing back then for him to come out and him to say that. Do you know what I mean? And and they just described him as being very, very brave for doing that. Do you know what I mean? And then we got like, and then right, and and Jimmy Greaves, right, up till today, he's one of Britain's highest ever goal scorers, right? In the what we've got now the Premier League, but he used to play in the first division, which would have been the Premier League, right? But I think the only two people there's only about one or two people, I'm not sure, one or two people that have scored more goals than Jimmy Greaves. Right, so imagine that. So that's how prolific this man was at scoring goals. Because he was absolutely brilliant. He was absolute. I mean, he only missed the World Cup because he was injured, right? But I think there's, as I said, I think there's two players, right, that have scored more goals than him. And from memory, I think that it's Gary Lineker and Wayne Rooney. I think it's just those two. And now you understand, how prolific this man really was. Because, I never really saw him play football. I just remember him from Saints and Greavesy, where them two, they brought like a different flex from, it was like a football comedy. what them two, and it was proper. I mean, everyone used to watch that. Everyone used to watch Saints and Greavesy. Do you know what I mean? Whether it was men, women, children. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Everyone loved that. Right, so and then we got we've got to say a special R.I.P. to John Chalice, right? Al Boycey, right? But Boycey was, very, very funny, man. Just absolute character from Ugly Fools and Horses, right? There are so many. There's so many great British comedies. Absolutely fantastic British comedies. Do you know what I mean? So I would just say that one of the best. Do you know what I mean? But there's just, the list is just so vast when it comes to British comedy programs, from back in that era. Do you know what I mean? Obviously you can still watch them today on Catch Up and places like that. Right? But the era that those guys worked in was just hilariously funny. These guys was belly laughing funny. Do you know what I mean? So, but there's just, as I said, there's so many comedies around that time. So I'm not even going to mention any of the others because there's just so many, right? But what winds me up about that, right, is that now we've got a government who's deliberately trying to wind up you stupid ass racist Brexiters, right, by saying things like, "Oh, we need to make programs more British." We sell motherfucking programs all over the fucking world, and we always have. We always have, right? And now, right, they're trying to culture wars again with you guys. Again, right? How much more, right, British can you get than fucking EastEnders? It's in the East End of London. Right? This is, right, on Coronation Street. It's filmed in motherfucking Manchester. The fucking, right, it's sold all, these programs sold all around the world. Right? This is what really just winds me up about these people with their culture wars, right? With their fucking 25 fucking flags behind them, right? And they're doing it for you Brexiters to think, oh yes, we're British and we're sticking up everybody else. Right? When they're fucking the country up. That's all they're doing, is just fucking the country up. Right? And they're starting with all these fucking culture wars. Right? So they've got you against me all the time. Our program's not fucking British enough. Have you not seen fucking Faulty fucking Towers? Make programs more fucking British. Right? When we're selling Who Wants to Be a Motherfucking Millionaire around the fucking world. Right? Even the one with the fucking red box is being sold all around the world. Right? Our TV programs, right, are some of the best in the world. Right? And these people, right, are attacking all of our institutions. They're attacking. This is why that arse of a prime minister brought in fucking Nadine Dorries, right, so she can try and fuck up the fucking BBC. Right, the BBC, yeah, right, is one of the fairest institutions out there, even though now the government's getting more and more involved and making them do things, right, that they're not comfortable in doing. But that's what they're doing, right? This is what they're doing, right? You know, when you go on the BBC, you probably can't ask any of the serious questions to any of the politicians, right? About, you know, Brexit's really fucking up the country, isn't it? You can't say something like that to them, right? But right. So that's why they're sending Nadine Dorries in so she can fuck up the BBC. Right? See, these people, these people have got a fucking complete shit show of a plan. Do you know what I mean? And their plan, in all it involves, is keeping the working classes down, right, and keeping the rich and the upper classes up. And that's been their mission from day one, right? From before any of us was born, any of us that are living now, before any of us was born. Okay, that has always been their thing. You keep the fucking working classes down, and you make sure that the working classes, right, know their place, right. You see all these fucking culture wars, what these people are starting, right. Our TV programs are not fucking British enough. What do they want us to do? Hoist the fucking Union flag in every scene of EastEnders? Do you know what I mean? You know, this whole thing, right, is just completely ridiculous, right? Simon Cowell, he sold his program all over the world. I've seen people in China doing China's Got Talent, right? I've seen people in Australia doing Australia's Got Talent. Okay, program was made here. Right, Simon Cowell, right? He didn't need to have a bunch of flags behind him, right, to make a TV program that is British. Seriously, people need to stop all of this. You know what I mean? Because these culture wars is just gone too far. You know, look at another thing now, Insulate Britain. Oh, by the way, they're just having a protest on the M25 as we speak. About 15 of them just run up on one of the carriageways, they just blocked up traffic, fold out their banner and said, you know what, insulate Britain right now, right? But right, so you see again, right, they're trying to force us with culture wars against insulate Britain, because we're in the position, right? You see, as the working classes, right, we're in the position to do fuck all about anything, right? Because they have made sure of that. That's why they have rocketed the house prices. They've made sure that we are, as working classes, we are always busy, right? Because if you're paying, right, 100, 200 or 300 grand in some cases, over the price, right, for your house, right? Because that's what's happening. They've inflated the house prices so they're so high, and that keeps the working classes busy. Because you know what? All we're worried about, right, is our house prices. All we're worried about is the cost of our house, right? And so we have to get out there and work, right? Because you know what? We've got high mortgages or we've got high rent. Whichever way you look at it, one of those two is high. So all we're literally doing is working for that, right? So, as I told you before, they're not. Right, because when you're taking 6, 7, 8 grand a month, right? Don't worry about it. You know you got 2 grand mortgage. Don't worry about that. Okay, you know when 8 grand drops into your bank account a month, right? You don't worry about, right? But you see, right? When you've got £2,000 or £3,000 drop into your bank account on a month, right? And you've got 12 or £1,500 to pay on your mortgage or right? Then they know you're at a stretch, and you need to do some overtime and them things there to keep yourself going, right? So they know to themselves, you know what, right? We keep the fucking working classes busy, right? Because most of the motherfuckers have to work fucking 5 or 6 or 7 days a fucking week just to keep afloat. They can't go out and protest. What can they do? Because if they go out and protest, they might be able to do it once or twice, but then you know they'll start losing their houses. Any more than that, they know that, so they know We can't protest about anything, nothing, right? But insulate Britain now. Those people, see these people, yeah. I don't know if I've told you this before. I'm sure I have. These people are the government's worst motherfucking nightmare. Yeah, because most of them, yeah, a lot of them that I've seen, yeah, are a lot of them are retired, right? So they've got time, right? And if they own their houses, right? Oh, yeah, yeah. So I mean, these people, if they're retired, then they've got time. That's standard, right? Obviously we've got a lot of pensioners that have to work. Because it's working class your whole life, and you're motherfucking working class pensioner too, right? So, but most of these guys, a lot of these guys seem to be more middle class, right? And they've got all the time in the world. Well, obviously not left, but you know what I mean, right? They've got all the time to do these type of protests, right? And the police did get a bit heavy-handed with them the other day, right? But I think what the government are trying to do, yeah, the government are trying to put us, the working, especially the working classes, against them, right? Because the government can't deal with them. Because all the government can do is say, you know what, treat them like they're motherfucking Black Lives Matter, beat them, right? Get out your fucking pepper spray and spray the motherfuckers, tase them, right? Take your truncheons out, right? Take out your shields and whack them with your shield, right? That's all the government can say. That's so, right? The only thing they can do, is put us against them. So that's why like over the last few days, every single right wing presenter, yeah, has been bringing out all the teary-eyed stories. Oh, there was a nurse, she couldn't get into the hospital. There was a cancer surgeon in Kent, right, who couldn't get to the hospital. Someone had a baby in a car, right? Someone watched their mum, like, have a stroke in front of them, and for 6 hours couldn't get, and then when they got to the hospital, the doctor said, well, if you'd got here earlier, we could have done a lot more, right? So they bring out all these sad stories, right? So that we, the public, we get pissed with Insulate Britain, right? And we start to attack them, because that's what some drivers are ready to do. Do you know what I mean? But let me tell you this, right? If I'm there, they roll the banner out in front of me, right? Nobody, right? I'm gonna stand up right there with Insulate Britain, right, to make sure none of them get attacked by anybody, because they have the fucking right to protest, right? We can't get up out there and do it. If we could, right, if we didn't have to work, yeah, 7 motherfucking days a week in most cases, right, then we could get out there and protest, right? And I see people saying, oh well, why don't they go down Downing Street? Why don't you just send them to the place where they've got the most police officers in the country? Why don't you just do that? Why don't you say to them, you know what? Go and protest outside New Scotland Yard. You're fucking stupid. Right, someone else said, well, what they should do, right, is a lot of pollution. There's a lot of pollution in Africa, like Nigeria. A lot of pollution there. Don't you go there and protest? Again, I'll just say to you, yeah, I wouldn't if I was you. I wouldn't go to Africa and protest, because they're a lot more hands-on. They're much more hands-on, right? And if I was you, I would leave that up to Africans to protest their government. And then someone else said, "Oh, well, you go to China." I know you're thinking to yourself, why have all these people got the same voices? But all races seem to have that voice, especially the men. They all seem to have that voice. Why don't you go to China? Right? So, well, again, can't we leave that up to Chinese people to protest their government? Wouldn't that be the best use of our time, right? Rather than 200 people from Britain fly out to China to go and protest it. That might not go too well. So if we can, let's leave it to the Chinese to protest their own fucking government. Right, so we've got a major diplomatic row, obviously, with France, and the France have, they've ceased arms talks with Britain. Right? Now you just think to yourself, for me, right, you don't wind up your neighbour, right? Because you wind up your neighbour, right, and shit can end up catastrophic for you. You wind up your neighbour, Right? You stay close to your neighbour. You know the French. Right? The French are the closest to us. For me, to me, from where to where I am, France is closer than Scotland to where I am. Okay, right, closer. My Scottish brothers and sisters, right, my French brothers and sisters. Okay, I don't know. That might have been the wrong way round, but you get the point, right? Now, for me, you don't wind up, right, the closest, your closest neighbours. It's just ridiculous, right? Because we've got like, obviously the whole ARCOS nonsense, what they're coming out with now, right? But it's like your neighbour has a problem, right? And then someone from the other side of town comes there, and then you're on that person's side from the other side of town, right? And they go, right? A few weeks later, you and your neighbour don't get on. You're not getting on with your neighbour now, obviously. You can't be getting on with them, right? A few weeks' time, you come home to find your house burgled, right? Now, to yourself, you know what? My neighbours are some fucking my neighbours, right, are some nosy motherfuckers. You know that. Everything, the slightest noise outside, they look out. They're looking out the window, the back, the front. And they can see the whole road, they can see everything. They can see right into your back garden and everything. Right? Now, your house gets burgled. You come home, your house is burgled. Right? And you know to yourself, well, you know what? Your neighbours, they must have seen that person. They must have seen that person when they went in and when they come out. And your neighbours was just like, well, all right, Marge. Yeah, I've just seen someone jump over Frank's back wall. Oh, have you? Think he's a burglar? Could be. Okay then, well, alright. Well, I'm going to bed now anyway. Do you want a cup of tea before I go? That's what your neighbours are doing. Because they fucking hate you. Right? Because you got involved with people from the other side of the fucking town. Right? So now your neighbours will never look out for you. When someone comes to your house and takes your jewellery, your TV, your DVD player, your stereo system, your iPad, your iPhones, right? They might even take your puppy. And the neighbours see all of this. They say, oh, well, yeah. I'm not friends with them. What am I going to call the police for? And that's what happens when you wind your motherfucking neighbours up. Just ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? And we've got like Brexit. Right? Now, I don't know if the energy crisis here is linked to Brexit. I don't know whether them two are linked, right? But I can tell you, that Brexit is not helping the motherfucking situation. Right? It's not helping the situation at all, right? Because we've got companies who produce CO2 and they can't do that. And if you know how much of our products need CO2, it's no joke. It's a lot of products who need CO2, right? So a lot of our energy companies now, right, have gone bankrupt, and they need bailouts, right? Because this is what happens, right, when you give all of your businesses over to the private sector, right? There can come a stage where they run out of money, right? Because you know why? Because the motherfuckers have got shareholders that they've been nicing up their shareholders all these motherfucking years. All these years, they nice up their all these years. And you see, this is what happens when the government don't run these institutions. Why do you think the government just had to take back a load of fucking train lines? Because the motherfuckers run out of money to run these train lines. Right? Because they've been giving all of our money to the shareholders all of these years. And that is why you don't get big business to run the industries in your country. Okay? If you notice, the only ones, who this never happens to is the phone companies. Because you know why? Because the phone, right, is it is an essential item, but it's a luxury essential item. And that's what the difference is. And everybody has to pay their phone bill. You've got no choice, right? And that's what the difference is, right? So you see, I don't know if Brexit is linked with the crisis that we're having with these energy companies, right? But Brexit, right, is not going to help us with anything, right? And it's the worst time, around the world now after the pandemic, right? And with this new energy crisis now, it's the worst time for anybody to have been Brexiting. Right, the worst motherfucking time, and that is down to you, motherfucking stupid ass, racist, stupid, foolish Brexiters. Right, you are the people, yeah, who have destroyed this country. Right, so you are the people. This should be on your shoulders, you stupid motherfuckers. But I'm quite sure that you knew what you voting for. Hmm? You knew what you were voting for, right? Hmm. Yeah, really. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap this up because I've been on here for ages, right? So I'm going to wrap this up. This is By Any Means Necessary. I'm GMC John Ribs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.